Hey everyone, do you recognize this location? This is the site of our biggest unclogging we've ever done. I have stopped the vehicle here. I'm pretty sure it's safe to proceed across, but in the vehicle, I can't see what you're seeing on camera. I can't see underneath the water, but this is probably the worst place I've ever seen as far as beavers causing floods, and I just want to put into perspective how bad this is. So down here there are two culvert pipes. We opened them up last year, and that was our biggest unclogging we ever did. That took me 4 days because the pond is so big. I lowered the pond about a foot a day. It was maybe 4.5 foot culvert pipe. So I'm walking right here. There's only a couple inches of water. We're gonna proceed through it. I can see that it is solid. This road's built very rocky because a lot of times the logging company puts the culvert up on a hill or a lump like that on purpose because they want it to flood, if it is gonna flood, in this lower spot so they don't have to replace the pipes when the road washes out. Now just take a look at this. This did not float across here. The water was never that high, but I know there was a lot more water here during the spring thaw. Most of the snow in the woods is done melting this time of year, but this is way more water than there was last year. Take a look at it, and this could certainly fit through those pipes if they were open. So I am going to get the company involved now that's responsible for this. I marked it last year a whole bunch, but obviously didn't work, and there's a big old difference from last year. The whole tree line on the edge of the road next to the swamp is gone. Entire tree line is gone. Beavers cut down every tree along the road. Let's look for some stumps. Yep, look at that. Look at all these stumps. There was a pretty good barrier of trees here. I see a good amount of stumps in the water. Is that ice? Yep. Still some chunks of ice, more beaver stumps. You see the pond is still partially frozen. I came here for a visit, I believe, in December, when this was solid enough you could just go across the entire thing. I think I may have just seen a beaver swimming. Look at this, they cut down every tree. Look at all these stumps. Look at all these stumps. The first time I unclogged it, I was in the middle of some trees. And the trees are just all gone. Look at this pile. That's some of my debris. Once I got a good flow, I let the rest of it pass. This culvert is in bad condition. It cannot be safely opened. It'll deteriorate the road if it was. See this? This pipe is big enough for me to stand in. They have made a beaver dam so big, such a large base, because every time you destroy a beaver dam, they don't realize in their head that you destroyed it. They think it failed because it wasn't strong enough. So every time, beavers build back better, every single time. This is the one we completely unclogged. See this? The pipe is only a couple inches above the water line, but yet it's big enough to walk through. To put into perspective, this water is supposed to be like 5 feet lower than it is, which is amazing. This is the worst place I've seen for this. And here's the other side of the pipe. That right there is a giant amount of debris that we let slide out of the pipe last time. See, nothing down there. But here's the thing. Beavers always build a bigger mess every single time. Look what these guys did this time. Let me get down there and show you inside the pipe. Take off my hard hat so I can use it in there. Entire pipe has debris in it. So before we can even allow things to start passing, we would have to manually empty out the entire, 35, 40 feet pipe. We'd have to manually take everything out of it because if we started deteriorating it, everything we let go through is going to immediately get stuck on it. They basically made a dam through the entire pipe. Beavers just come back Dude, and these are great engineers. They need to move these beavers to a place where somebody wants a pond, where they can do beneficial water storage. Because the size of this pond, when we drained it last year, we went for a walk in here to see where they actually live. It turns out this massive pond, they don't even live here. This is a secondary pond. The first time we drained it, there was zero attempt to even build it back because they don't live here. They have another even bigger pond if you walk up there like a half a mile. They didn't even start construction for like a month after we drained that, which is amazing. So we're about to drive through this now. I'm sorry about the lighting. I don't have actually any camera lights that are good for shining far away at night, except the one I'm wearing on my head shines a pretty far beam. So all this water is eventually making it back to the stream bed anyways. But even if I do report this to the logging company, there's a good chance they're gonna say that they're abandoning this road. Because this road, they've already created a bypass. They're just sick and tired of this. This road washes out here almost every year. That's why it's built up so rocky, because it was a major washout. So they put the rockiest fill they can, and that's why it's still safe to drive through here. Now, if you remember the video last year, I don't think you can really see it because it is almost completely dark out. Behind me is one of the biggest hills in the logging forest. You can't see it, but one of the biggest hills in the logging forest. Every moderate rainstorm, the entire hill erodes because it's so steep. And that's why they have a bypass. It's a couple miles longer, but it's way easier. What I'm about to drive through, after I go through this flood, it's gonna be potholes galore. This is one of the worst roads out here. And that's why they have all their trucks going around it now. The other road is longer, but it's completely flat. Doesn't have any of these issues with the geography of it. And right there looks like it also flooded across the road when it was a lot higher. But look at this. Where I'm standing, this road is inches above the pond. And this pond goes down there hundreds of feet. Down there where I came from, hundreds of feet. Down there, half a mile at least. It was staggering how big this place was when we actually walked in here last year. And look at the moon. The moon looks nice. Wait, now that I'm zoomed in, maybe you can see the hill. No. No, you can't. I don't know why. Sometimes zooming in adds light. All right, back inside the vehicle. I'm about to pull forward a little bit so I can show you guys some more stuff down on the same road. So I just went into town. I had to refill I have 6 gas cans on me today. And the 6 gas cans will fill the car up. And the car is full, so I basically have about 4 tanks of fuel, almost. And that's needed when you're going deep into the logging forest. Sometimes I'm going hundreds of miles away from any gas station. You can't possibly make it back on 1 tank. And I don't want to go back. I have enough food. I can be out here for like a week. Just going around inspecting culverts. I just bought a ton more marking tape. I can put up markers. Put the windows down. This is going to sound pretty cool driving through deep water like this. Woo! Big splash, leaving ripples across their whole pond. Beavers are going to be angry about that. Maybe clean up the underneath of the car more too. I would have just blasted through that at higher speed, but the reason I didn't is because I'm having a couple issues with the vehicle that I'm putting off getting fixed until I'm done this week. I already was out here for about 4 days, and I just went back to refill all my tanks, and going out another 4 days because this time of year is melt season, very active, a lot of cool things to photograph out here. And then I'll come back out here again, maybe June or something. Yeah, this road has so many potholes. They're not sending the grader out anymore. This is one of the worst bumpy roads ever. Really bad. And because they just abandoned this is still like the dominant road out here. Most people who come out here who are tourists don't know to go around it. So this is like their first impression of the main Northwoods. There's still snow on it because this is an unplowed road. This is the first time I've actually been able to go down here. I attempted it from the opposite direction yesterday, and I got too intimidated by the deep snow. I thought it would have been horrible on that hill, but I came from the other direction today. It's all melted, so I'm gonna try my best to make it all the way out of this road. Yeah, underneath the reason I didn't tell you back there, the reason I didn't want to go through it fast is because underneath the car I have a plastic piece of junk skid plate hanging off because I ran over lots of trees because there's so much debris in the road this time of year and I haven't really cleaned it up, and it ripped one of them off. They put plastic skid plates on cars because the majority of people don't use their vehicles for this sort of thing, but almost every make and model of car, you can replace all your skid plates with metal ones. That's what I'm going to do with my next car, but I just have it temporarily bungeed cord up, made sure the bungees won't get stuck on the drive shaft or anything hot. Also, if you can hear some banging in the back of the car, I did this, I know for a fact. You guys might remember my shock fell off. That's because the bolts literally just ripped out of the hub assembly. It stripped all the threads on the bolts and the threading inside the hub assembly. Hub assembly had to be replaced. The sensor in the new hub assembly the car didn't like. They couldn't get the old one off because it was too rusted. So the new one, they tried to save me money by getting an aftermarket one. Then they had to get an actual Toyota one, which the car liked, and they didn't charge me any extra money for all the BS of having to go back to the dealership again. But now that they reused the old shock that fell off, I think the shock has just had it on the bumps over the past couple days. It's very loud back there, and I'm pretty sure it's a shock because when I go over these potholes here really fast, if it wasn't broken, I'd be going over this junk at like 30 miles an hour, but the back of the car is shaking a lot. I'm pretty sure it's the strut, and that's why I don't really care, and I'm not concerned about going back out deep into the woods. It's just a strut. It's making some loud noises, but whatever. It doesn't really matter to me. I'm not doing anything too extreme, but I also think it is a shock because the other day I was traveling at about 45 miles an hour on one of the roads that isn't very bad, and I hit a pothole really hard, and the back of the car it bounced quite a bit. So it's a shock. I'm not too worried about it. When I go back into town, I'll just make an appointment at my mechanic, and I'll just have him replace both of the back shocks. Shouldn't be too much money. Look at this big flood here. Oh, and because they're not using this, I bet all the trees that were in the road you have to drive around last year are probably still down there. And we are about, see, we're also getting into some snow. Today was almost 60 degrees, so it's definitely going to be better than what I saw yesterday. Right here to my right, if I turn down that road, supposedly some people own camps. They lease the land. The logging company will never sell you land. Well, they will, but it's very hard to get them to. My grandfather had a friend who owned a campground up here, and he begged the logging company for decades, can I please buy the land? Because some of the buildings there were over 100 years old on that guy's camp, some of the lodges and things he used to rent out. Eventually, the logging company sold him this beautiful property. It was basically a whole peninsula. It had its own boat marina, beautiful place. The logging company sold it to him for $1.6 million. And unfortunately, that guy got too sick to take care of the campground, and he tried to put it on the market and sell it, but in the middle of nowhere, he could not get what he was asking for, so the entire property is abandoned, and I have no idea if that guy's even alive anymore. That was unfortunate. And plus, that property, it was definitely worth $1.6 million. It had a beautiful house. It was all solar powered. It had a store on the property. It had, I think, 8 cabins. One of them was very old. It also had a lodge with 10 bedrooms, all bunk beds in each bedroom. That place was all historic. It was an old log cabin. It had so many campsites. All the campsites and log cabins that you would rent were not connected to the solar system. It had a big diesel generator that would run 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours at night, just to keep the refrigeration going inside of all the RVs, inside of all the buildings, and so you could charge up your stuff. The reason the diesel generator didn't run all day is because it was annoying and fuel was expensive. That campground was over 10 miles down a dirt road, and it would have cost a fortune to run a power line down there. Now, compared to the $1.6 million cost, the power line, I estimate, from just doing the math of how much power line cost and how much the poles cost, I estimated that it would probably cost less than $40,000. So that's minimal compared to the cost of the entire property. But still, imagine how many trees would be falling on it in a place like this. The power would be out absolutely all the time. And plus, it's kind of cool being completely off grid. It wasn't really worth it. You know, that was part of the charm of the campground. That was so unique, having a big old generator. Also, the generator, when the generator was running, it would fill a massive, tall water tower. So when the generator was running, the well was always running. And when the well was running, it was pumping up, filling this water tower so the campground and all the buildings could have pressure. And yeah, as soon as the water tower would become full, the well didn't shut off. It was always on with the generator. It would just start overflowing all over the ground, which was so cool. I used to love standing underneath that thing. That was very cool, that water tower. And if people used more water than normal that day, he'd start the generator up for like a random half an hour just to refill it. And every now and then, when the owner was working on a project or something in his shop, you'd have a couple hours of extra power just because only the house was attached to the solar field. I missed that place. That place was so cool. It had its own shower building. That place was nice. I'm not going to say where that is, and if anyone knows exactly what I'm talking about, please don't mention it. The property, I think, is abandoned, and I don't want it to become vandalized. All right. I think we made it through all the bad sections. We're about to reconnect with the main artery pretty soon, I think. So if we are getting close to the main artery, that means all the snow melted in the past day from the warmer weather. I was up here just a couple weeks ago. Yep, we're right here. We're back to the main artery. Just a couple weeks ago, there was feet of snow on the ground up here. Yep. It's all gone, but where we're going tonight, it's now 8:38 p.m. I am now traveling probably until midnight before I stop and sleep. Where we're going tomorrow, there's still well over a foot of snow on the ground. Northern Maine has only 3 months of growing season, so snow is capable of being on the ground. Typically not all the other, am I doing the math right? 9, 10, yeah, the other 9 months. Snow is not on the ground the other 9 months. The other 9 months, it just means it's possible for there to be a frost. Up here, typically, you're safe if you try growing stuff for 4 months. Where I live, I have 4 months of growing season, and I'm typically safe for 5. But historically, there can be a frost. Whether it be a small frost that doesn't really affect anything, it still counts. Yep, that's why I haven't planted my stuff yet. As soon as I get home from this trip, I'm going to start all my garden indoors. I have a grow lamp. I'm going to do a whole bunch. I'll make a little video of starting my seedlings in the house. I'm going to probably start the seedlings soon. And I'll probably put them in the yard the first or second week of May, even though my growing season doesn't start until June 1st. Last year I put stuff out the second week of May. I think there was one more frost, and I just put bed sheets over everything. It was a light frost. That'll protect your garden from light frost. And if you want to extend your growing season, you can just throw bed sheets or wrap your plants in plastic if there's like one cold night in the fall and you know the rest of the forecast is going to be pretty good. I'm also going to grow some tomato plants this year, and yeah, they're going to be in pots that I might actually be able to bring in the house for a little while to extend their life. I know I have a beautiful citronella plant that I've had now for 5 years. It lives in the yard in the summer, and it goes back in the house with its pot in the winter. It usually gets pretty scraggly inside the house from lack of sunlight, so I usually cut it back down to a stub in the pot and then put it in the yard, and it just grows right back. Citronella plant is an annual, but if you keep bringing it in the house, it'll last pretty much forever. Every now and then change out the soil. It gets old. It wants new nutrients, and it's been doing nice. I remember one year, I have a video of it too. I put these grow lights in the basement, and I brought in a bunch of pepper plants that I had in these plastic planters. I extended their life like until February, but they did not grow a single pepper more inside the house. They didn't like that. Look at this. I just made a video of showing that Beaver situation. I just talked a whole bunch of random stuff. But I know you guys like hearing some of the things I like to say. At least some of you do. That's why I post this on my second channel. I know certain people think it's fairly boring, but I appreciate you guys for being on this channel, seeing what I have to say. We're actually on a section of road. I don't need to go 20 anymore. I can go a little faster here. It's just the abrupt things that make the car shake and that shock in the back doesn't like. You know what's weird today? Because I fill up all these gas cans and it is the equivalent of, I have 30 gallons of gas cans today and the car holds, I've only been able to put 12 in there even though it has a 16-gallon tank. All modern cars keep extra fuel so you don't run out. Even when it's down to E, it'll go quite a while. Today the weird gas pump made me swipe my car 3 times. It would only give me 20 gallons of gas at a time, which was really weird. Never had that happen to me before. But you know what it might be? I recently signed up for Irving Rewards and I was using the membership card. It might be when I don't use the membership card, it will allow me to just get whatever I want for fuel. But I think the membership card, because the discount only goes up to 20 gallons, that might be what it was. But here's the messed up thing about Irving Rewards. You only get the discount that they advertise on the big sign if you sign up for their credit card, which I'm not doing. I don't want to have a ton of credit cards. I just want one. And I never really wanted to get into credit cards, you know. I always had a debit card. I was kind of forced into a credit card because you need credit to do certain things in life. My oil company wouldn't even fill up the heating oil tank in my house without credit because they looked me up and they said, you don't even exist on paper without credit. So I was kind of forced into doing that, but I built my credit up pretty well. But I didn't want another credit card, but I did get Irving's rewards card. And if you have their rewards card that's not a credit card, it only works for every 6th fill up, which is stupid. And then every 6th fill up, it only goes up to 20 gallons. I think that's really dumb because, yeah, this car I can only put 12 gallons in at once, you know? Not a big deal for most vehicles, but the next vehicle I get, I made sure that it can do my job well, and I'm so sick and tired of these gas cans. It's a pain in the butt. You gotta pour them out very slowly into the car. Most of these are cheap Walmart cans. I have 2 really nice ones, but the really nice ones are expensive, and they honestly don't pour as good as the cheap ones. So you have to hold the button, and it hurts your hands after a while because it takes like 10 minutes to pour it out. And the Walmart ones leak all over your hands. Gasoline makes your hands so dry, and you gotta find a puddle with dish soap to get that off. Sometimes when I go over a big bump, it tips over on my bed and starts spilling, and I don't know it's spilling because I'm already kind of smelling the fumes in here. So my next vehicle, they're going to remove the spare tire from underneath the gas tank. I'm having a welder do it. They're going to order a gas tank that's actually made for the car to go in the spare tire part, but the welder is going to modify it and like make it bigger so the vehicle will actually be able to carry. He thinks he'll be able to modify it so it'll be able to carry 60 gallons total, the original tank and that. And 60 gallons, that's like 3 tanks for the truck. That's way better. It has a splitter, so when you go up to fill it up at the gas station, it fills the original tank and then it automatically just goes into the other tank. All one fill up, easy. And then that has a transfer pump. You just push a button and it refills the other tank twice. I think that'll be pretty cool. Because it has been such an inconvenience doing this for the last 3 years. I thought I better spend the money, and the welder is charging me $3,000 to order the auxiliary tank and modify it. And that $3,000 I think is a very good price because that'll save a lot of heartache with these gas cans. These gas cans are a pain in the butt. They also take up a lot of space in here. You know, if it wasn't for these gas cans, I'd be much more comfortable in here. But yes, when I'm out here and sleeping, I can put them outside next to the car. No one's gonna mess with it in the middle of the wilderness. But just a pain in the butt. You gotta cover them, and even if you cover them with a tarp. One time in the morning in the summer, they were covered in slug poop. I don't know why. Are slugs the creature? I know certain spiders, they like the smell of fuel. Do slugs like the smell of fuel? Is that why they were so attracted to my gas cans? Well, there was poop all over them from the slugs. And slime. That was really gross. I had to wipe them all down. That was not very pleasant. So after that happened, unless I'm traveling with a second person and I absolutely need the space in here, they stay in the car. I can stack all 6 of them in the passenger seat. Yep. And also, I usually keep 2 on the passenger seat floor, and I have the other 2 right next to me with a seatbelt on them. Because when they're in the back and you go over a big bump, that tail swing of the vehicle, it throws it like a seesaw, and that's what helps tip it over. So have them in the front, actually, they don't tip over anymore. Although I do have 2 in the back, but those will be the first ones to be used. I love being out here at night. This is the time you see moose. I was excited. The past couple days, I saw a decent amount of moose. Obviously not as many as I used to see when I was a kid up here, hanging out with my grandparents traveling these roads just to go moose watching, but because moose, they're either all moving north or I think they're just dying out. I'm amazed that animal's not on the threatened species list, and I'm amazed that they're still allowed to be hunted because it's becoming a rare animal. You used to see dozens of them on these roads every single night. Certain trips, I don't see a single one, but I got lucky in the past couple days. I saw multiple sets of a moose with a baby. It may have been the same one over and over on different roads, you know, because they weren't any time. Like, they were days apart. But I even if that was the case, I saw at least 4, which was nice. And thankfully only one of them looked beat up, like, you know, covered in ticks, and they're just scratching themselves to death to get them off. I think for animals like that, because I remember a while back I talked to some game warden about the moose, and he actually brought up, because of that, he felt bad that they're still an animal being hunted since they are so rare, and he told me that the only reason they haven't been added to the threatened species list is because for some reason Fish and Game says less moose means less ticks. Does that make any sense? It does not make any sense to me at all. Places like Canada will actually go overhead and they'll drop these tablets all over the woods for the animals, moose, deer, to eat. And when the animal eats that, it's just like the medication you give to a dog or cat. It keeps the ticks off the animal for, I think, 2 years, that treatment. While in, like my cat, I put the Advantage on the animal once a month. Only during the summer months, though. It's a waste of money in the winter, I feel. Just started doing that last month when I saw the ticks in the yard. I bought the Advantage stuff, and I asked a veterinarian about this, and they said it was okay. I buy the Advantage online from eBay, and it's like 5 years old, but I even contacted, is it Advantage or Advantix? One of them's for a dog and one's for a cat, but whatever one's for the cat, I contacted them and asked them what the shelf life is, and they said, it's still good, even if it's a couple years past. And you save like 80% doing that, because I contacted them and I gave them the serial number and stuff on the box. I wanted to make sure it wasn't counterfeit coming from eBay, because eBay is not always very trustworthy. Like, I'll buy memory cards on Amazon. I trust Amazon as long as it's sold by Amazon. Don't trust a third party with electronics. I've been screwed by people on eBay selling me fake memory cards. It'll work fine, but once you start filling it up, it starts corrupting and deleting and ruining things. Videos are all glitchy. Yeah, I only trust the company SanDisk, and I will only buy it from trustworthy places. Do not buy it from an eBay seller. When I even have one of those counterfeit cards somewhere. Maybe I'll show. Even the font is a little bit off. They're fake. And one time I was even sold a ghost phone. And guess what? I used the ghost phone for 3 years knowing it was a ghost phone. And it functioned well enough. Even made a lot of videos with it. But eBay has a very good policy. If you know there's a fake, contact them. They'll give you your money right back. And also, I don't know if it's just because they're being caught or what, but often a lot of times the eBay seller of the fake product will also refund you, saying they didn't know. They may have knew, but who knows? Yeah, I've been sold a lot of fake things over the years. You can't trust people on the internet unless it's a trustworthy website, you know? Also, when you're on eBay, always look at somebody's feedback. I will refuse to order from anybody who has feedback less than 90% or even 95%, because there's a reason for that. The majority of eBay sellers are like 98, 99, 100. There's a reason when they have that amount of feedback. Now, if someone has, even if somebody has 50% feedback, you have to look, how many things has this person sold over the years? If it's someone who's not really a seller and they only sold like 2 things in their whole eBay career, then give them a break. Like, I know over the years a few eBay sellers I've actually became friends with, and because they know who I am. Oh, also, when you're on eBay, that's like a whole game. Like, never give somebody negative feedback unless they already gave you positive feedback. Because if you gave them negative feedback, even if they earned it, they may give you negative feedback. And people are more likely to haggle with you and give you good deals if you have positive feedback as a buyer. So you don't want to, yeah, like I have a few people on there who I've done business with so often that I can go in their store and I'll offer them half price for something, and they just do it because they know who the heck else is gonna buy a 60-year-old can of dog food like I do. If you haven't seen that channel, I have a channel where I've opened hundreds of vintage food just to see if it held up over the years. I actually started that channel because my dad told me my whole childhood that canned food lasts forever, so I decided to take him up on his offer. I found a bunch of it at an estate sale in the basement, bought it, made a video of it, just posted it what the heck for him to see, and suddenly it went viral. I can't believe people actually watched it. It's called Opening Decades Old Canned Foods, the original video. It's literally on the floor in my mother's basement. No table, no production quality at all. Just me with an electric can opener on the floor next to the furnace, dumping them into a container to just throw in the garbage. Some things, it came out like a big piece of Jell-O, and it wasn't supposed to be something solidified. That just proved things do go bad. But it all depends. I opened a can from the 20s of dry soup mix. It's a dry product. Cooked it up, it tasted fine. But it was a dry product. It wasn't really much of a risk in tasting that anyways. But I've opened all kinds of things. Like one of the grossest videos I ever made is like a 2-hour video opening dozens and dozens of military sea rations from the 1960s. They were meat, cheese. I opened old milk once that was 50 years old in a can. So I opened some very gross things, but it was interesting. I don't do those videos much anymore, but when I'm bored in the winter time, I'll definitely make a few more. Yeah, I've done a lot of videos on that channel. That channel also has hundreds of videos related to that. Those videos always did well, but people still are watching them, but I'm honestly kind of burned out on those videos. You can only do one thing like that for so long. Now, when it comes to unclogging culverts, every situation's different. Everything is always different. And it's also very entertaining searching for these things. I'd say, you know, it's actually hard for me to say average what I drive for each video, but total for the videos I make, I drive, last year was 50,000 something miles just for video production, not even my personal miles. And the year before that, I think, was 42. Year before that was 25. And the year before that, I wasn't recording them. Wasn't recording mileage back then. But that first year, I didn't even have a car the full year. Back then I used to just ride my bike to my apprentice job, mowing the lawn and electrical thing. Yeah, you can see just by driving, now we're actually starting to get a snowbank. I've been driving north the entire video, the past half an hour. I'm only driving 20 miles an hour. I'm just enjoying the ride. The speed limit here is actually 45, but when you're on logging roads, it's peaceful. The log trucks aren't allowed to drive this time of year because the road is too soft. They would sink and just destroy it. It's not tourist season. No one wants to be out here when it's chilly. I'd rather be out here when it's chilly. I avoid the place when it's hot out. That's miserable for sleeping out here. My favorite time to be out here is throughout the entire winter. No one's out here, you know? Except today when I went to town for food and gas. I was out here, did not see a single soul. No one passed me. I went by a few logging places where they were actively working, stockpiling the logs for when the trucks are running again. Didn't see the workers. They were out in the woods with the skidders and stuff, but literally for 3 days didn't pass a single person on these roads, not one bit. Hear that going over the bumps? Now you can really hear that broken shock. I'm assuming it's the shock. I went underneath, I even jacked it up, jiggled everything around. It has to be the shock. Nothing else is loose that would be dangerous. That, like, the whole back axle's not gonna fall off or anything. Also, that giant hill I showed back there, that big hill, I think there's just too much active groundwater to do anything feasible to it. That's why they abandoned that road pretty much. But there are actually a couple logging roads in Maine. They actually paved them because they washed out so often. They spent the money and they paved them. You can tell they're very pothole filled, it was decades ago when they were paved, but even despite the potholes, it's still better than what you got these days. I'd rather hit dirt road potholes than asphalt potholes any day, because dirt road potholes are always rounded on the edges. They don't pop your tires if you hit them hard like they do with a asphalt one. See a lot of the wet spots in the road now. That's not from melting snow, that's active groundwater. That'll settle down soon. All these dark spots you see in the road with the leaking groundwater, this is where a giant log truck would sink so easily. A typical log truck is 80,000 to 100,000 pounds around here in the summertime. If it's really dry, like during a drought and just hasn't been raining, occasionally you'll see the double wide trucks that can be up to 200,000 pounds in the summer, but that's a pretty rare sight. They typically just run those in the winter when the ground is feet frozen. But this time, not these days, but like a month ago when I was hanging out up here, the most logs I've ever seen dropped on the side of the road, just falling off of the trucks. It's the frost heaves. Right now there's no frost heaves, these are just potholes, but we'll be hitting frost heaves tomorrow when we get really far up north. Up there, the ground is still frozen. I was just up there a couple days ago, and I sunk only a few inches, but I almost slid off the road because the mud was so slippery. I got out and I was like, why didn't I sink deeper? It's still frozen under those couple inches, the road. Still very much frozen up there when you get to the crown of Maine near Canada. Yeah, today is like, what's the date? I think it might be like the 24th. We're getting towards the end of the month, but you'll still find snow up here in the very high elevations, far points north, well into the month of May. It's just how it is. But tomorrow I am going to an area I have never been to before. Maybe we can find some cool places. I just got a bunch more marking tape. I'll be marking. Anytime I find a road hazard, I always mark it. Helps them out, the logging company, figure out where exactly the issues are. It stops people from ruining their vehicles on things they may not see, speeding here in the middle of the night. If it wasn't for that shock, I'd be going almost 40 miles an hour and zigzagging around these holes. But I'm just taking it slow today. Like the other day, I saw this gigantic void in the road. The pipe was undermined. It dug out the entire road, and there must have been a 4-foot hole in the middle of the road that opened up into the culvert pipe. And I put a bunch of ribbons around it, stuck sticks in the ground with ribbons so nobody would fall into it. And guess what? I actually saved myself by doing that, because the next day I was barreling down that road so fast, not remembering that was there. And if it wasn't for those ribbons, I don't think I would have seen the hole at that approach angle. I don't think I would have. I could have went right through that thing. Alright, I think I'm going to end the video here. This is pretty cool, a video that I don't really have to edit, because I just paused it every single time when I stopped it. Because, you know, sometimes when I'm out here filming things, I'll spend hours, sometimes I'm up until 3 in the morning putting these videos together, because I need to watch over every single minute of it just to make sure everything goes together right. I don't wait to edit things. I used to wait like weeks before I'd start editing old videos. I don't do that anymore because I forget everything I wanted to do. Because when I'm filming something and I make a mistake or want to add something as a caption, I remember it if I edit it that night, exactly what I wanted to do. But weeks later, I don't remember it. And then sometimes I post it, and when it's already posted and people are seeing it, I'm like, ah, man, I forgot to do that to the video. So that's why I don't even want to wait all the time until that night when I park, you know, because I don't want to be up until 3 in the morning. Lately, I've been, as soon as I find something interesting to show you guys, I'll film it, and while I'm still pulled over on the side of the road, I'll quickly edit it together, but I don't save it in the editor. I just leave it open so I can keep adding things to it if I want. If I decide I don't want to add anything, I can just hit save. I found that to be a way more feasible way of doing things. Look at all this water. This was definitely crossing the road. But it's not Beavers. I checked that pipe yesterday. It used to be Beavers, but they were relocated. That's just because the pipe is too small, and also a lot of excavator damage, reducing its capacity, so it's going across the road. I remember years ago, the first time I ever came up here myself, that road was so washed out that they actually filled it with logs, the washout. It was kind of scary driving over a pile of logs. Had to go like 2 miles an hour. Bump, bump, bump. I wonder if one of the log truck drivers who had one of the self-loading trucks was able to do that himself. Probably not. I don't think the truck could get in there at that angle. Definitely not a tractor trailer, I don't think. The road's not even wide enough for the trailer's length. But somebody did it. Most of the log trucks up here aren't self-loading anyways. Some of them, the truck driver will actually load his own truck. It'll have the hydraulic arm. The guy gets up in the chair and can load it himself. Some log truck drivers get out of the truck. They go start up one of the machines and they load their own truck. Or sometimes they just pull up and whoever's working on the site just loads the truck really fast and they're out of there. I've never actually filmed them loading the truck. That's kind of awkward asking if I can film them doing that. You know, they'd probably say yes. You know, they'd probably be happy that I'm taking interest in their job. I probably should ask sometime if I can film them doing some of their work. Yeah, that would be kind of cool. Because, you know, it's awkward just being there. You know, I have filmed them, you know, driving by, but every time they see you waiting, they stop what they're doing to let you pass really fast. You know, I'm not gonna just, it's really weird, I think. Oh, we're still getting, we'll get out, the snowbanks are getting bigger as we continue. Thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great night.